In my last video, we touched on CD Projekt Red's co-founder Mark Gawinski, who made an apology video apologizing for the state of which Cyberpunk 2077 released in. In this video, let's hear what the developers have to say. Jason Schreier interviewed with more than 20 current and former CD Projekt Red staff who depicted Cyberpunk 2077's development process as being marred by unchecked ambition, poor planning, and technical shortcomings. Employees discussing the game's creation for the first time described a company that focused on marketing at the expense of development, and an unrealistic timeline that pressured some into working extensive overtime long before the final push. In Winski's apology video, he touched on many things. One of the things that he touched on was the fact that he said that they did extensive testing of Cyberpunk 2077 and never ran into any bugs, problems, or glitches that the rest of us consumers are experiencing. I was definitely taken back by that statement because you do not have to go far, and especially when the game first released, you did not have to go far. You didn't have to play for even 15 minutes before you immediately started running into problems. And in this article here, it reads that developers argued otherwise, saying that they ran into many common problems but didn't have the time to fix them. There's a lot to cover here, and we may not touch on everything, so definitely check out this article for yourself as well, but let's start with issue number 1. A slice of gameplay was showcased at E3, the industry's main trade event in 2018. It showed the main character embarking on a mission, giving players a grand tour of seedy, crime-ridden Night City. Fans and journalists were wowed by Cyberpunk 2077's ambition and scale. What they didn't know was that the demo was almost entirely fake. Developers then went on to say that due to this fake demo, this wasted a lot of time. In fact, this fake demo took away months that they could have spent actually making the game. The developers then go on to basically say that due to this fake demo wasting so much of their time, they wound up hitting the ground scrambling and wound up having to cancel a bunch of features and scaling down the size of Cyberpunk 2077 so much, and is why we were promised so many features that just didn't make it into the game. They didn't exist, and a lot of them just needed to be canceled because they didn't have the time to make it. Another issue that developers ran into was that they tried to develop the engine technology behind Cyberpunk 2077 while simultaneously making the game itself. This significantly slowed down the process of developing this game even further. Also, CD Projekt Red, while working on The Witcher 3, they only had 240 staff members. At the time of making Cyberpunk 2077, they jumped from 240 staff members to 500 employees. And they're simply not used to working with that many people. This led to other problems. One of those issues being that not all 500 of those staff members were from Poland. Keep in mind that CD Projekt Red is a Poland-based company, and out of these 500 people, some of those were people from the US and Western Europe. So there was a language barrier that they had to overcome as well. And lastly, CD Projekt Red staff members had to move the rest of the development process of Cyberpunk 2077 to their own homes. This was a problem as well due to the fact that each employee has their own computer setup, which doesn't properly reflect what the game would look like or run like on console. Even as the timeline looked increasingly unrealistic, management said delaying the game was not an option. Their goal was to release Cyberpunk 2077 before new consoles from Microsoft and Sony, expected in the fall of 2020, were even announced. That way the company could launch the game on existing PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC consoles and double dip by releasing versions down the road for the next generation consoles. As the launch date drew closer, everyone at the studio knew the game was in rough shape and needed more time. According to several people familiar with the development process of Cyberpunk 2077, chunks of dialogue were missing, some actions didn't even work properly. When management announced in October that the game had gone gold, that it was ready to be pressed to discs, there were several major bugs being discovered. The game was delayed another 3 weeks as exhausted programmers scrambled to fix as much as they could before the game released. One person said that they thought the April 16th, 2020 release date was a joke. Based on the team's progress, they expected the game not to be ready until 2022. Developers created memes about the game getting delayed and made bets on when it would happen. Whew. So that was a lot. Not really even sure what to say about all of this. All I know is that thank you to the developers for taking the time to speak to Jason Schreier. I'm glad you were able to have your voices heard and we can understand what happened behind the scenes. And honestly, man, We read through this all and I still don't quite understand how the leadership team fucked up so bad. Developers did not expect the game to actually be ready until 2022 because the development process of Cyberpunk 2077 was going that poorly. And the leadership team was pushing for the game to come out in 2020. The demo we saw in 2018 was fake, reminds me of another title, and a lot of features are missing in the game due to the fact that time was simply wasted making a fake demo and just poor decisions, as they said earlier, just very poor decision making. And when CD Projekt Red said that the game went gold, there were still major bugs being discovered. And also I'm extremely disappointed at CD Projekt Red and how far they have fallen from grace, and I hope that other gaming companies take this as a lesson and do better, including CD Projekt Red. In Winsky's apology video, he did make it very clear that the fault was on the leadership team and not the developers. Again, very awesome to hear from the developers themselves, but god damn, yeah, the leadership team fucked up here. I love you all, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.